going on, YouTube? So, if this looks a little bit different than my normal setup, it's because it is. We are going to try something different here because it's suggested that sometimes we should do different things. I have a setup here for doing Suminagashi painting. Sumi-e is basically an ink form of painting. Originally, Sumi inks started in China, made their way to Japan, which is where they got the Sumi name. I have some paper that I've acquired here. I'm gonna rip a sheet out of, and some ink. I have a dish here that I'm gonna be using, some brushes. And yeah, we're just gonna give this a go and see what happens. I'm actually gonna grab a little bit of extra water here real quick. Just so that I have it for my brushes. Especially for the brushes that are gonna have the ink on them. And yeah, we're just gonna see what happens here. As I say, I have the brushes here. These brushes are from China, or at least the Chinese style of brush per se, calligraphy brushes. And you know, I have a good amount of these that I picked up. There was an art supply store here in the area that was closing. They may still have a couple of things left in the store. They're called Ready Arts here in the area. They've been around for decades. I actually remember visiting them at their old location 20 years ago when I lived here. And back then I wasn't even into art. I was just kind of like, you know, a fan, I guess you'd say. So, oh, how times have changed. But yeah, you know, it's just going to be something where I'm going to try it out now and see what happens. I'm going to just put this brush here inside the water just so it starts to get its little thing. Got some dots in here. I'm not sure if those are paint dots or whatever, but let's find out. And I have the Sumi ink in a bottle, which I'm just going to pour a tiny bit of the ink in. Traditionally, if I was doing this, I would have an ink stone that I would be working with. And I would basically take the stone and take a little bit of water, and I'd have these ink sticks, and I would grind out the ink there in order to make it into the liquid. That's the traditional way, and the more acceptable method of doing this here. I was not able to get the ink stones when I went to the place, and actually I didn't even see ink stones available. I just had it as a kit, you know, for doing traditional calligraphy painting, or ink painting, I should say. So just in research, it was like, oh yeah, you need ink stones. Could have said that before. But like I said, you know, the place is going empty. And then this over here, I don't know if you can see in the corner, but I have another dish here with some soapy water that I'm going to use as a dispersant. Separate brush for that. So what's going to happen, just to give you guys a little bit of a, hey, what's going on here, is that I'm going to take my paper after I make a pattern inside of, oh, and this dish here is just a clear dish, some water in it. Like I said, there's a couple little spots. I kind of gave it some time where it would settle, but hasn't fully settled, I guess, but whatever. There are other ways that you can do this. I did end up getting a kit of Suminagashi. I hope I'm saying this right too. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments. Suminagashi. But I ended up getting a kit of paints that you can use, because you know it's normally done as a marbling thing also. So maybe after I come back here and try one of these out with just traditional, you know, black and clear. Maybe on a second or third attempt, I'll attempt to do some true marbling. But this is the paint color kit. You can use, you know, different other things for this, acrylic paint, especially the high flows. I ended up buying some high flow paint from the place before even thinking about getting this Sumi set. Yeah, this was the Sumi set that you pick up, and like I said, it came with little brushes or whatever, and instructions on how to use. And Sumi, you know, is something that you could do basically if you wanted to, I don't want to say this here, if you wanted to do, you know, the traditional painting per se, you could do the Sumi art like that. What I'm going to be doing here is more of an abstract versus trying to paint a landscape or a cat or a goldfish or, you know, koi or whatever. But what's going to happen here is I'm going to dip this brush here into the ink, and I'm just going to put like the tip in and then the tip in, tip in, tip in. And it's kind of a meditative process when done correctly. So we'll see if I'm able to do this correctly. I got some just ink right on, like I said, the tip of my brush there. And we'll see what happens. Like I say, you just want to get like just a tip of the brush. Just a little bit, just a tip. And you can drop the inks in. I didn't even have to drop that one there. You can drop the inks in pretty much anywhere in the dish that you're wanting. Ideally, you don't want to go too far. They're telling you to try to get, you know, try to hold the, oops. But yeah, they say to try to hold the brush like straight up per se when you're doing this. This isn't going to be perfect, but when have my paintings been perfect? I was meeting with a friend actually a couple of weeks ago, and you know, she asked me what was the one thing I learned in this process, you know, of making art, and my response simply was that, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're basically out here doing our thing, just trying to, you know, produce as well as possible. So, you know, I'm not trying to make this perfect. I'm just trying to make some lines here. Traditionally, you know, we just have a bunch of rings together, but I'm also seeing that, you know, like I say, it's not really holding in one spot. The water, you know, it's not very still, even though this water did sit for a while. I think it's because I'm near an AC vent, so I might be moving this project over to the other side of the studio here where I don't have an AC vent nearby. But yeah, just kind of making some lines, making some doodles. And you know, the good thing is it's ink, so when I am done, I can, you know, do anything I really want with it. So I'm gonna just put that down. I'm gonna put this brush here down, I think. Okay. So I got kind of a pattern in there. You know, we'll see if it really patterns out. I'm gonna grab a slice of this paper, and I got a little bit of ink on the other side. When you're using this paper here, this is a rice paper. And you know, there obviously are different types of paper. If you don't have rice paper, you can use just plain untreated copy paper. If you don't have Sumi ink, you can use India ink, apparently. Like I said, there's paints that you can use. But when you're using the rice paper, there's a smooth side and like a rough side. I'm gonna put the smooth side down. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put it like kind of in the middle here. And then let it spread out to the ends. Where we're gonna try to get all of the areas covered. We're just gonna leave it there for a couple moments. Let the ink kind of grabs onto the paper. Move that guy out of the way, move this guy out of the way. I'm doing this one kind of quickly because, you know, I want to do other things with my Sunday, but, you know, I did want to try this out. It's suggested that you use like a piece of clear plexiglass, which I don't know if I have. I don't think I really have clear plexiglass per se. Clear plastic. I have. That's not right. Well, I mean, that could work. It's plastic enough. Yeah, so I could try that out and just see. I also just have like a metal, which I probably will just put it in the metal now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, whenever you're wanting to bring it up, just really carefully because it is wet paper at this point. And voila. This is our pattern design here. Very trippy, very sort of, you know, cool or whatever. And yeah, as I said, I'm just gonna set this, set it into the metal pan so that it dries for right now. Hopefully, maybe. You can kind of see, you know, that it's a little bit drying out there. So yeah, this will hopefully dry here, you know, as a pattern. And I just want to show you guys also, I'm going to actually slide this out the way. Apparently I can use this water, well, maybe not that bad. But I could have used that water. Maybe I can use the water again. Who knows? But that's where it looks now, you know, as a pattern per se. And I did a couple of these before. Probably should have showed you this. Well, I did one of these before. Probably should have showed you this before starting. But this is a tester that I did, I think it was last weekend. See the pattern, see the design. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of try that out, give you guys a little, you know, thing there. You know, and just say, hey, listen, you know, we don't always have to do the same thing all the time. We don't always have to make the same art. It's good for us once in a while to try something different. So, you know, if you get a chance, get an opportunity, yeah, go out, try something different, try something new. Experiment a bit. You know, give yourself the openness to try something new and, you know, see what happens with it, because, you know, it's a good opportunity there and a good chance that you might like what you try out. Ooh, here's a nice little sheet. Yeah. All right. So I just happened to, when I was putting that away, I found a clear plastic sheet. So yeah, here's some, you know, the piece there, and I'll come back, I guess, and you guys can see how it looks when it dries. But try something new, you know, get yourself out, try something else. Like I said, the materials for this, the kit that I bought was maybe $20, 24.90 actually was the price on the kit, and then because the place was going out of business, they, reduced the price. Um, the paper I think was like $10, but like I say, you can use copy paper. You're not, held on to having to use a certain type of thing really with this. If you wanted to do like a traditional painting per se, traditional, sumi type of painting, um, yeah, it is good to have the, sort of normal stuff there, and, something to try. But, even if you just wanted to try out marbling, if you were always curious about that, yeah, just go out, grab the materials, give it a shot, give it a whirl. You don't really know what's going to happen until you do so. I might just see if I can put together like a little something. Are you going to stay still long enough where I can maybe try to draw you? See, yeah, I can already see this. There's way too much water on it. But it's okay. My cat is sleeping over in the corner over there. And it's just so cute when she does that. Just, it's been this thing with her where, she'll just come and be all up in my lap. Um, and I think she knows that I'm kind of having a bit of a time right now. So I get a little bit of extra attention from her. But there, and also, it's probably just something where, I've actually been sans cannabis lately. Not that I think that she really cared before, but she's probably like, oh yeah, you don't have your normal medication, so I'll just come and sit in your lap instead, and then you're probably a little bit stressed out, so I'm just gonna come sit in your lap instead. So yeah, that's just how it's been. Um, and if you wanted to, try just drawing some of this here. This is the painting aspect of it. Like I say, you do painting with when you're painting with this, you're looking for more of a gray tone versus, traditional ink drawing. So I guess just straight up black. So probably not the best. I know, I gotta keep practicing. It's that ADHD perfectionism type of deal where it's like, oh, you don't want to try something. And I seriously sat through like 12 different videos on how, you know, you don't want to try things. How we often don't want to try things, you know, but yeah. I wonder something else here. Because I hate waste, you know, I hate like wasting ink. Um, I don't know. I'm just putting ink on the thing because, you know, because I guess I could try to put this back in the bottle. I don't even know. Probably set up and do another one of these later. Who knows? But yeah. So let me know what you think. I'm just going to. I'm actually going to put my clothes in a dryer now. And like I said, I'm gonna let that other piece sort of dry off a little bit more. You're supposed to change out your water each time whenever you're doing the Suminagashi, or you know, at least every other time. I guess you could kind of skim it, but that water's pretty dirty, so you know, supposed to change it out. Um, but we'll see. You know, like I say, I may end up trying to, you know, I mean, this is kind of a practice here for me. And just practicing some of the different strokes. Put some of my birds up here. But yeah, you know, let me know what you think. Um, if, you know, ink painting is something that you'd want to try out. Sumi is the ink painting, and then Suminagashi is the floating version of ink painting, like floating ink, I guess what's called, or ink float, something like that. Yeah, I think I've used enough for this year to where I'm kind of satisfied with it. And you know, like I said, it's pretty easy cleanup. I would just rinse off everything and you know start anew. I'm not gonna put the ink brush into the soapy water. That's gonna stay separate per se. And yeah, I'll leave the ink brush separate from this here. You know, and the soapy water brush, that'll be a separate thing. That's actually a, what do I want to call that? Oh, it's a, it'll come to me in 5, 4, 3. Oh, looks like a little ink on that brush too, whatever. These are actually watercolor brushes that I picked up on clearance years ago, and like a set of them, and just never used. And you know, Sumigashi painting, or Sumi painting, I should say, rather than Sumigashi. The Sumi painting, you know, a lot of times with Chinese painting, they will use it for watercolor type of painting. So just something to kind of think of there. But yeah, let me know what you think. Leave a message in the comments. Let me know if you're going to try this out. And yeah, once this dries, I don't know, maybe I'll frame it, maybe I won't. You know, you can always use them as like book binders, cards. You know, there's all sorts of little uses for this. And, you know, like I said, I could try it out with some colors maybe next time or whatever. I haven't found any glow in the dark colors, so I'm not going to flip the lights and do the whole glow in the dark thing. But yeah, you know, it's just something kind of fun that we can do here, and you know, we'll see what happens. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up, you know, getting really good at this and trying it out. The last time I decided to try something out new art-wise, I ended up going into work the next day and was told that my services were no longer needed. And yeah, years later, you guys are buying those paintings. So, fun times. Deuces.